I always felt like when we discussed this before, there was always like doubt that the games are connected at all, and that there's like that's like intended by the developer. These are intended to be sequels, prequels, interquels, and they're not completely just like, oh, we made a new game and this isn't like connected to any of the other games at all, by intention. So you don't disagree with that? So you would say that, oh, the developers do intend these to be connected, and I guess we can broaden that to say that the entirety of them are all connected and intended to be connected, rather than just some of them are connected, right?
Yes. So I think I'm kind of was it the latter, where I think some of them are connected, but I think the overarching branching timeline's more of a afterthought than a well planned out system that they intended from the beginning. I think that the first like 3 or 4 games they had no intention of making this timeline. It wasn't until fans kind of pushed them to make an official timeline that they started putting things together. Kind of around the time of Skyward Sword, where they explicitly stated this is a prequel to all other Zeldas.
Well, I guess we can then focus on the whole branching timeline thing and whether that was intended. Because my experience with this, I was very into the Zelda series, and so I spent a lot of time. This is just what I would do with things I got really into. I would just read about them online and stuff. And I do remember back in the day, in the 2000s, before there was like an official timeline, because I think this Hyrule Historia timeline came out in like 2014, I think, was when they like finally were like, okay, here's the official timeline. So I remember when they were like doing fan timelines, and even back in the day, most of the fan timelines were 2 branches. Most people agreed that there was at least a split on the timeline, and to me that makes a lot of sense because of Ocarina of Time. I would say, yeah, they obviously they wouldn't intend a branching timeline until that game came out, but after that game came out, like I feel like the ending of that game does very clearly create a split because of the time travel aspect, because we have that cutscene at the end where Zelda's talking to Link and she sends him back in time with the ocarina, and so we see like, oh, everybody's celebrating in this world that Link is now left behind to go be a child now, but we also know that he is going back in time to relive his childhood, which would be weird if he was just reliving the same thing again. So we would, assume that's a separate existence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you disagree with, I guess, the intention of Ocarina of Time, I guess, to split things like that or create a branch?
See, from my perspective is, I don't think they really cared about the branching timeline aspect when they made the game. It was more of, hey, time travel would be really cool, let's add it to the game, with no real thought of how it would impact some, timeline for the story.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Wasn't
I mean,
until, afterwards, when there's fan pushback, like, what does this mean? How does this impact the story? That they even bothered to give it a thought.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, like, to me, it's not Ocarina of Time by itself that makes it clear to me that, like, oh, they intended to create a split timeline. It's really the games that came after that make that more clear to me, because after Ocarina of Time, we got Majora's Mask, which very clearly to me, and you can disagree, I guess, but it's very clearly like a direct sequel to Ocarina of Time. Clearly the same Link. Clearly he's a kid again. He's got Epona. He's got the Ocarina of Time. So, and he's traveling to Termina. You know, we get the blurb that he's searching for a lost friend, which most people assume to be Navi. So we agree Majora's Mask direct sequel, right? Any disagreement?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean,
Okay.
a very, very loosely connected one. I mean, from a traditional aspect, you know, there's really no continuation of a story. I mean, it's just kind of two separate games that are, I guess, could be in the same setting. Not same setting, but, you know, same universe.
I feel like this game very clearly, like, it clearly references Ocarina of Time. Like, I know this, I guess you can say that the story, yeah, it's like, maybe it doesn't matter that much, the connections. I guess I wouldn't disagree with that, but, like, clear cut, it is a sequel. I mean, yeah, he's got the Ocarina of Time. There's a cutscene where he learns the Song of Time back. You get a flashback to Zelda. So
Love that song, by the way.
Yeah.
Remember always having like the 1 hour loop on YouTube or something. Just listen to that.
The Song of Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did bring up the manual. Man, now I feel kind of dumb having screenshotted all these manuals because I kind of felt, I guess we were gonna have a quite different discussion, but
Yeah.
So you definitely can't read this, but I'm gonna zoom in.
Well, I can't read. Yeah, I can read that now.
Okay. Well, it says several months after rescuing Princess Zelda, saving the land of Hyrule, Link set foot into Termina. So I just wanted to point that out. Even if, I mean, I don't know. It's clear to me that they like, even the developers, I guess if the arguments, whether the developers intended it to be a sequel, it's like all signs kind of point to that being the case. At least to me. I know the manuals aren't always the best, like, source of information, but yeah, I don't know. It's the best thing I could grab, really. Otherwise, I'd be watching like cutscenes and stuff. I'm like, that's lame. I don't want to do that. I don't want to pull up cutscenes. So, are we agreeing on that or no?
For the most part, yes. I think the contention I have is that it's, again, very loosely connected sequel. It's not like, you know, there's characters that, you know, return from the previous game that, you know, continue an overarching story. I mean, for the most part, the game is very self-contained. I mean, you're in a whole new town with a whole new issue, and the only returning character is Link. And I guess, you know, Epona, but for the most part, it's just Link in a whole new story.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, technically Zelda comes back in like a flashback.
Well, yeah.
And he has I mean, as like an item, the Ocarina of Time, I feel like it's important to acknowledge the, you know, that's carried over. But yeah, you're right. Most everything else is like entirely new. I don't even know if they intend the Happy Mask Salesman to be the same Happy Mask Salesman from Ocarina. I don't even know if that's clear cut, to be honest. He very well could be.
You know, we have this, you know, pre-bit asset. Let's kind of just, you know, use it. I kind of doubt that they plan for, you know, any meaningful connection between the two.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a lot of what they did in Majora's Mask, I guess, is reuse.
Yeah.
Like they reuse like the Cuckoo Lady as the hotel inn girl.
They made the game in like a year or something. Like it was super quick turnaround.
Just reused assets to Majora's Mask is my favorite game, by the way.
Oh yeah, I love
this game. Fantastic. But I guess to get back to the main point, I also have this timeline, which is from just as a why is it all white now? Whatever. This one's actually from Hyrule Encyclopedia, which came out in like 2017. The only reason I grabbed this one is because it has Link Between Worlds and Triforce Heroes, but it's exactly the same anyways. And it's also got descriptions, but it's less appealing to look at. So I don't know that we're gonna like keep that one up. So quick editor's note here after the fact. I'm not gonna do this more than just this once. I feel like it's kind of unfair for me to like interject. In order to justify keeping this portion of the video, because I'm about to basically launch into kind of a rant, and even in me rewatching this, I don't even know if it like makes sense or it's like what am I trying to say here? So I want to clarify, and then you'll hear this rant, like what point I'm trying to make. And the thing is, I'm trying to make like 3 points at the same time, and that's why it's so like unwieldy and confusing. So I'm trying to make the point like, okay, here at this stage, the argument is that there would be one singular timeline, right? And so I have to justify the fact that Links to the Past and Ocarina of Time are connected, and that what's described in the manual of A Link to the Past is essentially the events of Ocarina of Time. But I'm also trying to reconcile the fact that Majora's Mask doesn't fit here, although I don't really I don't know if I explained that super well at all. And then the other part of the argument, there's a third part to this argument that I don't even think I properly clarified why I was making this argument, which is just I guess there's two parts, because in the Hyrule Historia timeline they describe this as the Fallen Hero timeline, but I'm also trying to make the point that, like, if we agree that there's supposed to be a split in the timeline here, then most people wouldn't place it in the Fallen Hero timeline. They would place it in the Adult Link timeline, right? Link to the Past would be in the Adult Link timeline. So I'm trying to justify whether we can get from Ocarina of Time to Link to the Past in the Adult Link timeline. And I'm like, okay, you can kind of do that. It kind of makes sense. But you have to... There's a couple things that do have to be changed. At the same time, if we do it in the Fallen Hero timeline, it's kind of the same deal, because mostly the Fallen Hero timeline just kind of covers what if Ocarina of Time basically completely happened, but Link just fails in the end. And so I'm trying to bring that into the argument, but like I feel like I did a really bad job of explaining all of this, and I think I just confused my friend by discussing this, and I don't think I don't know. I just wanted to like clarify that. So this is kind of gonna be like a little lengthy of a rant that doesn't really make much sense. So I just want to like, for the sake of it being watchable, because I really can't cut it out. Just because I feel like it's a large portion of what we recorded, so just for the sake of watchability here. But yeah, so Majora's Mask is interesting in that it continues from Ocarina of Time, but it continues in that it has the young Link going into this new world of Termina, and he is obviously this would be from after he's been put back into his child form by Zelda.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so I guess my main point is he's not in the other timeline, like the other adult Link where Ganondorf was defeated, sealed in the Sacred Realm, all that. That didn't happen. Well, I mean, it kind of happened, but we won't get into that, I guess, right now. That's that. Now, at this point where that game came out, you definitely could almost place Majora's Mask in this timeline as well, which would be what you'd have to do if there was not a split timeline. So you'd have to put Majora's Mask over here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues with that. Namely, Ocarina of Time, the adult Link timeline is the one where Link teams up with the sages and he seals Ganondorf in the Sacred Realm. And our assumption is in going into Link to the Past... This is gonna get really like convoluted. As you can see, I mean, this is the Heroes Defeated, also known as the Fallen Hero timeline. The original games are supposed to take place in like a timeline that is basically, what if in Ocarina of Time Link failed and he died? So that's where it's placed now. But if we assume that it's actually supposed to be in the adult Link timeline where Link won and he seals Ganon in the Sacred Realm, can we still get to A Link to the Past, I guess, is the problem. And I think technically you kind of can. The issue is in the lore to Link to the Past, which I can pull that up. That's Zelda 2. This is also, I love back in the day they had these intense lore manuals. So we actually want the Imprisoning War, which is this. So Ganon, he rises from the deserts. It should say that at some point here. The gate to the Golden Land of the Triforce was opened by a gang of thieves skilled in the black arts. In gathering twilight, the Triforce shone from its resting place. The leader of the thieves fought his way past his followers in lust for the golden power. After vanquishing his own followers, the leader stood triumphant over the Triforce and grasped it with his blood-stained hands. You heard a whispered voice, if thou hast a strong desire. He gets a wish. Also, it's very fun in Link to the Past. His full name is Ganondorf Dragmire, which is also actually fun because even though you only see him as Ganon in A Link to the Past, but he is a human Ganondorf.
Was this made? When was this made?
This is the Link to the Past manual.
Oh, it's actually in the manual? Okay.
Yeah, so this is 93, I believe.
Gotcha.
But, like, there's... So, for a lot of the retro games, I think up to, like, before Ocarina and, like, the N64, like, most of the lore is coming from the manuals, right? So, you talk about Zelda 1, it's like, there's not much, like, story in there, but, like, the manuals are intense in the lore that they have. So, Link to the Past has a little bit. It has, like, an opening cinematic where it describes portions of this. Ganondorf getting to the Golden Land, he takes the Triforce, and basically what happens is the 7 wise men and the Knights of Hyrule basically seal him in the Golden Land. And then, because he's stuck there, he basically takes over the Golden Land, and that's what the Dark World is in Link to the Past. It's Ganon's, like, takeover of the Golden Land. So that's all right.
So I was just going to add that I think in terms of how this could fit in the timeline, like if we're going to assume, there has to be a timeline for every game in the series, I think anything could be hand-waved saying, okay, this game took place 1,000 years after the previous one, where a lot of stuff happened that allowed for this to be possible. Like the Link to the Past could show up, in the hero defeated timeline, or it could show up in the other timelines just by saying, oh, this is 1,000 years later, where, eventually things kind of got reset back to the kind of natural order of this cyclical story, where, it's Ganon facing off against Link and Zelda.
Yeah.
So I don't think... Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, you can do that with, I suppose a lot of these is just like us, because, yeah, you're right, it's cyclical, the way they've established the universe, is like things can just happen over and over again. But I think in this context, it's a little more simpler to... So basically the what they're describing here, him taking the him and his army of thieves, they come out of the desert, they enter the Golden Land, they take the Triforce. Now that is basically what happens in Ocarina of Time. Ganondorf is born of the Gerudo. He comes out of the desert, and he uses Link to enter the Sacred Realm, which I believe to be the same thing as the Golden Land, because it's described as the place where the Triforce is, in both contexts. So he does that. But the problem with Ocarina is that he's defeated at the end of Ocarina. So that's really the only big problem there. It's like you don't really need this other storyline where the 7 wise men get together and they seal him in the Golden Lands, because Link defeats him with the 7 sages and seals him in the well, he does seal him in the Sacred Realm as well. It does work a little bit better if you say, well, Link didn't do that and he failed, and so they were like, all right, well, we have to get the 7 wise men as it's described. It's not really super clear here if that's the same thing as the 7 sages, because obviously sages aren't all men. But I don't know. Link to the Past clearly came out before, so
weren't they all men in the Link to the Past though? Because then we have the sages' daughters or something that are in the crystals.
I don't know if we have. I don't know if we see any of the sages in Link to the Past. No, you're right. The 7 maidens are descendants of the 7 wise men. That's right.
Yeah,
that's true. But they're not the same characters. They are descendants. Mm-hmm. My point is, this is kind of a weird. It's a little tricky to get from Ocarina to Link to the Past, which you can sort of do it, but you have to change some details. So then, if we try to fit Majora's Mask in here somewhere, we'd have to basically assume that Majora's Mask is the one timeline, which stems from Link being sent back as a kid, and none of the adult events really happening in that timeline, which is even more of an issue, really. Right? Because then we don't have the 7 sages. Then we get to like Twilight Princess, where they kind of establish more of what happened to Ganondorf in that timeline, if we want to talk about that. But at that point, we don't really have any, I guess, additional information.
Which, but it's easier just to say, hey, this is, a retelling of the same story that got, changed over time, or, this happened so far in the past or the future that, anything is possible. So I think, trying to force it is,
yeah. Well, I don't know if it's
beneficial, anything.
I don't know if it's trying to force it necessarily, because I feel like it fits if you just, like, certain details are slightly different,
Yeah, it fits if you, change some things.
Just some small things. Most of it is, like, to me, most of it is the same, but it's like, it's 7 wise men. Is that supposed to be the 7 sages as well? I don't know. That's one thing. Obviously, Link's not mentioned here. That's the other thing. And Majora's Mask really doesn't, like, fit there. But otherwise, like, this description of what's happening does describe the events of Ocarina of Time. Specifically. But, further problems arise. So, now that we have that, I guess my point there is, like, I do think at this stage, like, we do have kind of, we have already kind of split. Because at the point where, like, Ocarina of Time came out, we had released all of these games. I think Oracle hadn't come out yet, but...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Oracle was later.
Yeah, it was a little later.
That's Game Boy, which is, a few years after N64.
Yeah. Well, Link's Awakening was out. It's the Game Boy Color wasn't, though.
Yeah. I think actually the Oracle games were close to the release of the Game Boy Advance. They're like the end of the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, they were like probably early 2000s, I would say, like 2000, 2001, probably. Yeah. Which Majora's Mask is 2000, I think, so they're probably like 2001, I would think.
I think, but they're closer to like 4. Maybe I'm get mine.
Ooh, no way. Look it up. Wind Waker's like 2002, I think.
Was it?
I think so, yeah.
I feel like I was older when it came out, but maybe you're right. Let's see, Oracle of Season.
Twilight Princess is like 2006.
Oh yeah, it was 2001.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, for some reason I thought I was older. I guess yeah, I was about 8 years old then.
Yeah, I said Minish Cap's probably around 2004, 2003. Game Boy Advance. Because it's definitely post Wind Waker. Yeah, I would probably put it there, like 2003 or 4. Anyways, I just wanted to, I guess, note that at this point, it does seem like once Majora's Mask came out, like there is an intention to kind of have a split here in the games, because Majora's Mask doesn't really fit over here.
See, I don't think they intended there to be a split in the timeline. I feel like they just fans kind of forced their hand to make one, and they kind of like reluctantly went along with it. So they kind of, shoehorned, all the other games into it. I think they even came out and said that, like, we don't care about the timeline.
I mean, I believe that now. I believe that as of Breath of the Wild, I believe they don't care about the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But, so we would have to debate whether the timeline was, like, intended throughout this series, I guess, and then into Ocarina. Like,
I don't think it was until, like, Skyward Sword that they tried to adhere to the timeline. I think that's when they started explicitly stating, hey, this is the very beginning. This is the original story that takes place at the very beginning of all other games. Where they started talking about, that kind of stuff. So maybe the Minish Cap. But even then, I feel like it's just... I don't think they really put their heart and soul into planning this, timeline out. Again, I think
I get what you're saying. I don't think they really had to put their heart and soul into it, though. I think it's really just like, if you go game by game, it's like, okay, well, this is a sequel to that. That's a sequel to that. This is a prequel to this. Like, Majora's Mask very clearly is a sequel to Ocarina of Time. So it's just kind of like, even if I don't know, even if they don't have like a strong intent, I guess, to like make a split timeline, they just kind of did. It just kind of happened because of the way that they did that. Because they made this game take place in like a split that doesn't like fit over here. So I guess we could like get into like arguing whether this was all intended.
Yeah, but I think
if you want to go there.
Well, to go back to my original, point at the very beginning is, I feel like it's all meaningless. Like, you could play any of these games in any order, and it will not have any impact on your enjoyment of the games. Like, you're not gonna lose anything by playing Majora's Mask before Ocarina. Like, you don't lose anything. There's no real point of confusion by playing them out of order.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even disagree with that. I think that's probably, I think that's true. But I guess it's to me, I guess, when we talk about like, I don't know, when the developers are, if they're saying like, oh, we never intended to like connect all these games, like I feel like they very clearly did. And I feel like all of these games do have connections to everything else. I don't think there's anything that like specifically is like a really there's some that are really loose connections, but I mean, for the most part, every game has like at least some connection to like a past game, and it does seem like they did intend to connect them. And it's just like they got to Breath of the Wild and they're like, we don't care anymore because we created this mess of a timeline that sucks to deal with, and people are gonna get on our ass about it if it's not like perfect. So I think it was intended, and I think it's just they're like, this sucks now. Now that we have to deal with this, and like stand by it, and like if we make a new game, we have to connect it.
So actually, I have a direct quote from Aonuma, Chapter 2. the full history of Hyrule in regards to the book they released with the timeline. It says, it arranges the series in chronological order so it's easier to understand. But from the very beginning, Zelda games have been developed with the top priority of focusing on the game mechanics rather than the story. And then he continues, for example, the Ocarina of Time, the first installment of the series I was involved in, the main theme was how to create a game with pleasant controls in a 3D world. Or in the DS game, Phantom Hourglass, the focus was having comfortable, stylish controls. Thinking of that way of developing the games, it may be correct to say that the story is an appendix to that. I even think that Skyward Sword as the first story was merely a coincidence.
That's part of the quote, or is that's you saying that?
No, that's his quote.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. Like, I definitely think the games definitely have more of a focus on gameplay than story for sure. And I would understand them putting the gameplay focus first and then being like, okay, yeah, as you said, like a story is kind of an afterthought or an appendix.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really disagree with that. I think that's true. I mean,
yeah,
Zelda's always been it is a gameplay focused series.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't know. It just bothers me, I guess, when the narrative that like the timeline is just like it doesn't exist. When people say that kind of bothers me. I'm like, these games, like, they clearly intend to connect them, like they're connected.
Yeah, I mean, again, it exists, but it's purely for the enjoyment of the fans. Like, it's not really, I don't know, it's just a fun thing to discuss. It's not really important to the series as a whole.
I guess that's true. I think the timeline is also very fun. I think it's a fun aspect of it is when these games did adhere to like some sort of like, oh, we have to put this somewhere. I think that was pretty cool. I think it added a lot of like, oh, we have to put like thought into where this is gonna go, especially as, I don't know, just like, because I said, like, as a kid I used to be obsessed with stuff like this. It's like I'd play the games and then I would just go online and just read stuff about read like fan pages and forums and all sorts of stuff. It was fun for me.
Well, that was all meaningless, Wes. You wasted your childhood.
No, no, I didn't. Well, I mean, we can go maybe in two directions here. I guess we could maybe dig into, if you want to dig into these and be like, are these connected? Did they intend to connect these? Or, I mean, if you want to talk anywhere else, I guess we could talk about anything else that you might want to talk about. But
I just want to say the Oracle games are some of my favorite. Yeah. I have very fond memories of playing those.
Yeah, those are good. They those are the only ones here that I'm always like, I don't think, like, from a timeline perspective, these are kind of the weakest connected to everything else, for sure. The only other one, maybe I would say Four Swords Adventures. Maybe Triforce Heroes, but I haven't played that. That's like the only Zelda game I never played. Yeah. Everything else I say is pretty strongly connected, but there's definitely an argument to be made that maybe those were just developed as without much thought of like
yeah,
where these are gonna go. Yeah, okay. Well, I guess we won't dig into, I don't know, do you want to dig into any? Like, I can go through and be like, this is why these are so strongly connected. I was prepared to do that, and we can do it, but we could talk about Breath of the Wild, and like, I think there's some interesting things about that game and how it's like, I feel like there's aspects of it that were intended to be like connected to the larger timeline, but I feel like they just messed up. I feel like they just messed up real bad, and then they're like, actually, it's not in any, or it's like, oh, it's like a merged timeline. Some people say that.
Yeah. Well, I think from their perspective, they didn't mess up. They just really don't care about the timeline.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, but it's weird to me that they reference stuff and as if it's like supposed to be
Yeah.
to be there.
I think it's just
I don't know,
it's fun to reference things.
I feel like it's only fun if it matters, you know? It's like it doesn't if it's not like, oh, we're actually connecting this, then it's like, why did you put that in there then? Like it doesn't mean anything. Then it's meaningless, you know? Then it doesn't
I can get
matter.
that. Kind of goes into the whole like the Ready Player One stuff where it's just like meaningless references to, you know, popular franchises. It's like it has no weight to it.
Yeah. I mean, it that bothers me, I think, a little bit more than, like, just like, oh, you can get the Majora's Mask in the DLC or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's, alright, that's, like, an extra thing that's not supposed to, like, mean anything. But, like, when they put stuff into, like, the base game that's, like, I don't know, you're supposed to view it as, like, lore that's, like, oh, it connects to this game.
Yeah.
And then it just doesn't. It's like, that's just lame. Like, that bothers me more because it just feels kind of lazy. I don't know.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, it is fun to, you know, like in what was it, Tears of the Kingdom, like they have the underworld, or I forget what it's called, the depths or whatever. They you can get all the different items from past games. Like you can get Majora's Mask, and actually I think you can get them all in Breath of the Wild too. But yeah, it's kind of cool to see that, but at the same time, I would like to see, like you said, more meaningful connections or entirely new items that, you know, have an impact on the current story of, you know, the game.
On the current story as opposed to, like, the connected universe?
Yeah, like an item, you know, kind of like how Dark Souls, the Soul series, has their item descriptions that kind of explain the, you know, story or the lore of that universe, where it's maybe not directly impactful to the story, but, you know, provides something a little interesting. Which I guess, I don't know, I guess kind of the items do that in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but it just gets messy because, you know, they also exist in other games.
Yeah, I mean, I preferred in, like, Breath of the Wild, I think, when they were, they're, like, in Tears of the Kingdom, they are just in the game, which is, that feels really weird to me, because it does feel like I don't know, it feels like a kind of item that you would, like, buy as DLC, you know, like, oh, it's just like a cosmetic thing that, like, references something else, but it doesn't really, like,
I'm glad there's no DLC in Tears of the Kingdom.
True, but I guess what I mean is, like, it doesn't really fit in that world. Like, it feels very out of place when I get Majora's Mask. I'm like, what? Why is this here? Like, it's weird that that's there.
And of course, it's, you know, essentially powerless. It doesn't have the same effects as it does in Majora's Mask, the game.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I only copied 2 things from Breath of the Wild that, like, actually reference stuff. There's a lot of little references. There's this line specifically, which they mention is Zelda. She says, "Skyward bound, adrift in time, steeped in glowing embers of twilight," basically referencing. This is when she's, like, donning him as the new hero or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, so she describes other heroes from the past, which very clearly seems to reference Skyward Sword, Ocarina, and Twilight Princess, which is interesting because that would put it. This is probably, like, very tangential, but I would put it, like, in the Twilight Princess timeline, just specifically because they reference Twilight Princess, but it doesn't really fit there. And I could explain that point if you want.
Yeah, well, why doesn't it fit there?
Well, it doesn't fit there because if we talk about... I gotta go to the last one. Okay, so I didn't copy the screenshot in-game because I thought that'd be annoying to do, but you have the Zora tablets in the Zora village, you remember these? The Zora tablets. Anyways,
Nope, I don't know if I remember this.
okay, there's a bunch of like rocks around the Zora's domain that like
Oh
describe
yeah,
Zora
remember that
history.
now. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So there's one that describes Princess Ruto. It said that around that same time, an evil man with designs on ruling the world appeared, bringing disaster upon Zora's domain. It is said that Ruto then awoke as a sage, facing his foe alongside the Princess of Hyrule and the hero of legend. Her achievements are remembered not only by the Zora, they are also forever etched in the history of Hyrule. So, this is kind of a problem because the Twilight Princess timeline is the Child Link timeline. It's not the Adult Link timeline. So it wouldn't have been the one in which Ruto awoken as a sage and fought, Ganon alongside the Princess of Hyrule and the hero of legend, because that would be the Adult Link timeline, the Wind Waker timeline. So, it's just one of those things. But, like, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the other things, like, they have Hyrule Castle Town ruins, which very closely, and the castle design does very closely match the Twilight Princess Castle and Castle Town in the game. They do have, like, the Forbidden Temple, which maps to, like, the Skyward Sword sealed temple, I think. They have the Lon Lon Ranch ruins. They have a lot of little like, references there that would work. I think this is kind of the big one that, like, messes everything up, though, because this would not have happened for that specific timeline.
Mm-hmm. Well, the
Trying to think if
whole
there was another one.
can the Zora and the bird people, can they exist at the same time?
Yeah, technically, I mean, yeah, it kind of, like, stands to reason that, like, what you said, if this is a game that takes place 10,000 years in the future, like, sure, something like that could happen, but, yeah, from the Wind Waker lore, it is specifically that the Rito were supposed to evolve from the Zora, and the Rito, it's specifically because the Great Sea gets way too dangerous, the Zora can't, like, live in the water, so... yeah, so they evolve into bird people, supposedly. And this is, like, proven in-game by the two sages. So you have, like, Medley, right? And her ancestor is a Zora. And then you have also the same thing with the Kokiri and the Koroks. Because you have, the Korok dude, what's his name?
I don't know.
I forget his name. The Korok dude, his ancestor is a Kokiri, a human boy, or a Kokiri boy.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's very clearly established that, like, that's what they were going for there. But at the same time, we also have, I think, Phantom Hourglass Spirit Tracks does feature Zora in them. So, that's a timeline in which you have both Zora and Rito, but, the Rito shouldn't probably exist in the Twilight Princess timeline. You're right. All right. Well, any other points you want to make, or anything else you want to get into? I can cover more of these connections and how they're more. If we want to do that, but I don't know if you want to do that because I feel like we're kind of. I don't know.
It's fun to kind of
settled,
discuss it, but yeah.
We've settled the dispute, I feel like. So a lot of this would just be me just rambling about stuff that maybe is not relevant. So I don't know. It's up to you.
Oh, is there something else you want to discuss?
I mean, I'd love to go off and just talk about all these connections, but I could go into this. But you want to?
Yeah. Let's go for
okay.
it.
All right. Let me see how much time we have. 50 minutes. Alright, if I'm gonna do this, I don't want to go probably past, like, an hour 30-ish, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I did copy all of these manuals, which is very fun. So I was just gonna go over, like, there's some very, like, clear connections to me that is some obvious, like, oh, these are obvious sequels. I think the clearest cut is, like, Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass Spirit Tracks, for sure. So I don't even want to go into that, really. I don't feel like it's necessary at all. The ones that I think are most split off, I think Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. But they do work. They do work. I guess I'll get to that. And I'm going to try to not dwell too much. There's also the Four Swords timeline, which I think is interesting, which is Minish Cap, Four Swords, and Four Swords Adventures. Four Swords Adventures, I also feel like, is very kind of disconnected, specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But Minish Cap, Four Swords are connected. But you could make the argument that they kind of are like a separate storyline, if you wanted to, and they don't really have to fit into the main timeline.
Yeah, so I think my only exposure to Four Swords was the one that was included in the Game Boy Advance version of A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
So I always assumed that it was kind of part of the same story, but I guess it's not even related. They just kind of combine them.
Yeah, it's kind of its own little separate little adventure, but it is its own little thing. It's Four Swords Adventure is not the same game. They're two different games. But yeah, I mean, so you could split them off, I think, just because they feature Vati mostly. They feature the Four Sword. They do have Link and Zelda, but because we don't have like a Ganondorf, it's a little less. Like Ganondorf's kind of the thing that ties a lot of this stuff together, I would say. He's the big running thread. But yeah, the problem is you get to Four Swords Adventures, you have Ganondorf. So that's the connecting thread there for Four Swords. It is interesting though, because it's the reincarnation of Ganondorf. It's the only time we ever see him reincarnated rather than just resurrected, which is fun. So I don't know, fun little detail. But I guess to just go into those, let's see. Again, I'm trying to not ramble too much if it's going to be boring. I hate looking at this, but this is the Zelda 1 manual. There's not really much to take from this. It's just very simplistic, like, oh, here's the most basic aspects of the lore that are created. You've got Hyrule, you've got the Triforce, you've got Ganon, you've got Princess Zelda. It does mention the Triforce of Power. Mm-hmm. It does mention the Triforce of Wisdom. It doesn't mention the Triforce of Courage, though, which is kind of fun, kind of interesting. But it's called the Triforce, so you would assume there's a third one. So yeah, it's very simple. It also mentions Impa in the manual, despite the fact that Impa doesn't appear in an actual Zelda game, I think, until... is she in Link's...
I don't think she's in.
Yeah, it would probably be Ocarina,
yeah.
If it's not like Link's Awakening. I don't think she's in Link's Awakening.
I don't think she's in Link's Awakening.
Yeah. It wouldn't really make sense for her to be in that game. Yeah, so that's kind of cool, right? I don't know, I find that cool when you have like, oh, there's the character.
So was Ganon in this a pig man?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
He's only a pig man. He's only ever described as, I mean, he's not described as like a human that turned into a pig man. So, at this stage, we could probably just assume that Ganon is just as he appears. Mm-hmm. But he does take the Triforce of Power, and tries to take the Triforce of Wisdom, but Zelda splits it up, and then that's what you're collecting in The Legend of Zelda, the first one. You're collecting pieces of the Triforce of Wisdom. So, I don't know. Yeah, kind of interesting. Adventure of Link, second manual. So, for me, I guess the main point for this one is just to establish that even in the manual, this is very clearly like, oh, this is a sequel to the first Zelda. At the end of a first fight, Link overthrew Ganon, took back the Triforce, rescued Princess Zelda. However, is it all really finished? So Ganon's dead. They try to resurrect Ganon. There's also this very lengthy story. I did read through this because I was like, what the hell else are they putting in this manual? But like, it's a bunch of stuff about how like in the distant past there was like a wizard who like kidnapped maidens. And yeah, and now this wizard is like back, but now. So this was a long time ago.
Also, the same
know.
wizard from Link to the Past.
I don't think so. No. Well, actually,
It looks very similar.
you could you could say that.
Yeah.
Because that is what he does in A Link to the Past. He steals the 6 maidens. Well, I guess Ganon technically does that. Well, no, Aghanim does do that.
Yeah, he's the one who
does
does
do
it.
Yeah, you're right. Look at that. See, it all connects. It's all intended. Yeah, we don't have to dig too deep into this one. I do want to say... Yeah, this one also mentions Impa. So, you know, kind of fun that she's a consistent character in the manuals. That's that. And then we just get to Zelda 3. And the main thing about Zelda 3 is that Zelda 3, when this came out, which is A Link to the Past, by the way, obviously, just by the name of it, it was intended to be a prequel. And so a lot of the events described in this are establishing, like, a lot of the world. Link to the Past is weird, though, because it is the first time where they create, like, a Link that is not the same Link, and they just kind of, like, don't explain that.
Yeah.
Like, why are there 2 Links?
Because it's
why
a legend
are there 2
quest.
Zeldas?
It's the same story being retold.
Yeah. So that is a thing. I feel like there was something that like explains why there's multiple links. I forget, but it's one of these like early manuals that actually does like acknowledge that. I don't know if it's the Link to the Past manual though. But yeah, I mean we already looked over this. It describes more in detail Ganondorf Dragmire. He was a dude. And then he became a pig. I believe just because, like, when you go to the Golden Lands, you change your form. You know, Link to the Past, Link turns into a rabbit. So I think he's just supposed to be a pig just because of that. He doesn't have the Moon Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
We can agree on that. I don't know. That's kind of a theory, I guess. But oh, the Master Sword. First mentioned the Master Sword. Blade of Evil's Bane. Yeah, I don't know. Main point. This is predicating the original Zelda. Mentions Ganon. And then we can assume if we go from this game to the original Zelda, that we have it's the same guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same dude?
Yep.
A little weird, though, because he dies in this. That's kind of weird,
That's
right?
true, yeah.
He gets killed. So, yeah, Link to the Past, Resurrection of Ganon. I guess they just describe it as the Resurrection of Ganon every time, because Ganondorf doesn't die in Ocarina, at least for here. Why do they feature the Resurrection of Ganon? That doesn't even make sense. I don't know why they say that, but I think that's wrong. It shouldn't be there. Oracle games feature the Resurrection of Ganon. Legend of Zelda. Yeah, you would have to have a resurrected Ganon here. But the fun thing about the resurrected Ganons, and this is a through line that we get from a lot of these, except for the original Zelda game, is that every time they resurrect Ganon, he comes back like kind of messed up and like crazy and like not good. So we see that in the Oracle games. If you connect the Oracle games, you see they resurrect Ganon and he's like crazy and evil. But we also see that in Link Between Worlds, which is also in this timeline. Link Between Worlds, they also bring a resurrect Ganon, and he also comes back real crazy. But then it stands to reason that the Ganon in The Legend of Zelda should also be crazy and mad if he's resurrected, but I could throw out another fan theory that much like Ocarina of Time has a timeline where the hero is defeated, we could also have just a timeline where Link to the Past, Link's defeated, and he doesn't actually kill Ganon at the end. And so, you know, we could do that. We could have actually a 4-pronged timeline.
Ooh, there you go.
This is my fan theory.
Alright, send
the
your
other
email to Miyamoto. Get it
yeah.
officialized.
Yeah. Could do that. The other thing is Four Swords Adventures we could push over here. Because we have the reincarnated Ganondorf. And we could just be like, oh, that's the reincarnated Ganondorf in Zelda 1.
Yeah.
But they put it over here for no reason that really makes sense. I
They
don't know why
needed
it's
more
over here.
games in that column.
I guess so. Because it's like, it has nothing to do with Twilight Princess Majora's Mask. It's just over here for no reason. But you could put it over here and it would fix that slight issue there.
Or you put it on the right side. Yeah, who cares? Yeah.
Well, no, you can't put it. It wouldn't. No, because
Sure you
it's
can.
Hyrule. No.
What? You can put
No,
it before
I mean,
Wind Waker.
you could put it No, you can't.
Why not?
Can't do that
Why not?
because there's a reincarnated Ganondorf.
So?
So Ganondorf is in Wind Waker.
Yeah. But again, you
there'd
can separate
be
these
two
by
Ganondorfs.
thousands of years.
You can't. No, you can't. Because the Ganondorf in the adult timeline, Ganon's sealed away in the Sacred Realm. And
Have
he
a game
escapes and then he
before it
takes
that
over
kills
Hyrule.
him off, and yeah, then he's reincarnated.
No, you can't do that. It Wind Waker very clearly connects to Ocarina of Time. In my opinion, this is the same
How much
Ganondorf.
time
It
has
can't be a
passed
different
since the
Ganondorf.
2 games?
Let's see. I have the Wind Waker.
Does it ever
timeline.
explicitly state that?
That was the Wind Waker one. This one sucks to read as well. Long ago.
Ooh, that's long ago. That's pretty vague.
That's long ago.
Yeah.
But it does describe the Ocarina of Time, and it's also very telling that it describes the Hero of Time specifically. It talks about the boy who traveled through time to save the land, and at least as of this game, Ocarina of Time is the only Zelda game that features time travel. I guess you could make the argument that, oh, there was like a different game that was basically like we that never came out, but it's basically exactly the same as Ocarina of Time and has a hero that goes through time and saves Hyrule and defeats Ganondorf. But like, you don't need to do that. You could just be like, I guess you could, but like, I feel like
you can do whatever you
it's
want.
it's kind of like an Occam's razor sort of thing, you know. It's like that's a more complicated way of explaining it. I get what you're saying. I just feel like I wouldn't say you could put that over here. I wouldn't.
Fair enough.
I wouldn't say that. You can put it over here though, specifically here, and nowhere else. You can't put it anywhere else.
All right. We can only put it where you want to put it.
No,
Sounds
that's the only place it makes sense. Like, because the only reason you put it here is because you get a Ganondorf that's new and not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can have a not crazy, like, mad psychopath Ganon in the original Zelda. Because, like, the Ganon in this is not, like, crazy psychopath.
Yeah,
He's very clearly...
Prince of Darkness.
Yeah, he's got a mind. He builds an army. He attacks the castle. Like, he knows what he's doing. Do you think Link to the Past is strongly connected with these other two games?
Nope.
No. What if I told you
Oh.
it's the same Link in all 4 of these games?
I don't believe you.
You wouldn't believe me?
I don't believe you.
Well, you would be wrong.
Prove it.
All right, I will. Okay, so Link to the Past, he defeats Ganon, right? Okay. Also, it's important that we note down the design of Link is very important, okay?
Mhm.
He looks like this. He's
They
got
just
this
reused
kind of shield.
assets. Yeah.
He's
Doesn't
got
mean
the
anything.
golds thing. It does. It means a lot. It means a lot. Okay. So this is the Link's Awakening timeline. Or, sorry, manual. Though you fulfilled the Hyrule prophecy, the legendary hero and destroyed the evil tyrant Ganon, the land of Hyrule enjoyed only a precarious peace. Blah, blah, blah. You decided to journey away from Hyrule on a quest for enlightenment in search of wisdom that would make you better able to withstand the next threat. And then you get shipwrecked and you end up at Link's Awakening. So this is that's Link to the Past.
Well, I mean, that could be any Zelda game.
No, it's Link to the Past. You can tell by his little gold band.
Oh.
It's Zelda?
Oh yeah, because Zelda never appears in any other game except for Link to the Past.
Well, I mean, the only other thing you could say is that this is like the Zelda 1 Link. at that point, right? And it's like, oh, this is the Zelda 1, Zelda 2 Link.
Yeah, maybe it happens after those games.
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I guess he technically could do that. I don't think it's intended though, just because this came out like just after Link to the Past. That's why I would say that was the intention. Is like, oh, this is Link to the Past Link, and not like, oh, we're making a sequel to Zelda 2 and not the game that just came out last. But important to note, I guess, it mentions that he goes, you journey away from Hyrule on a quest for enlightenment. So you leave Hyrule for a bit, which is what allows us to place the Oracle games in the timeline. This is the Ocarina of Time timeline, or manual, which just describes the history, which is also fun. Oh, I did want to talk about this, because this, actually, the lore in Ocarina of Time does actually match the creation of Hyrule myth from Link to the Past. So you got like the three gods. God of Courage creates life, which is Faror. God of Wisdom creates science and wizardry. I believe they describe it as spirit in Ocarina. God of Power dyes the mountains red with fire. That's Din. Wisdom's Nehru. And then when they finished their work, they left the world, but not before creating similar strength, a golden triangle known as the Triforce. And that's created.
Yeah, but they're all blonde in that one.
Yeah,
they're triplets.
But this is an artistic interpretation of the events.
Almost like it's a legend that got corrupted over time.
No, but they put it in the Golden Land. I don't know, that's fun because it matches the Ocarina of Time lore, which is basically the same thing here. Din creates the lands, Nehru creates the wisdom, the spirit, Faror creates the spirit of law, but she creates like the grass and the life and everything. I don't know, I just find it interesting that like matches from the Link to the Past manual, but it's not relevant. But so Oracle, this is the Oracle one, okay. Note, this is why I said we note the appearance of Link here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see how it's the exact same?
Oh wow, it's very, very similar.
And this is notable because this came out after Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, where he had a brand new design. And so it's interesting that they would go back to the Link to the Past, Link's Awakening design, don't you think?
Because it's a sprite-based game.
Ooh. But what is that?
Because the Link to the Past was sprite-based, so they're reusing the art assets. Oh.
But I guess I see what you mean, but they could just reuse. It's a 2D image of like Link, and just hand-drawn Link from Ocarina.
Mm-hmm.
So this is fun, because there one day on Hyrule, a strange force drew Link deep within Hyrule Castle, where he found the Triforce, and then it sends him on like a quest. Okay. So that's the only thing that really connects this to anything else, is like, oh, well, in the manual it says the Triforce sends him there. In Hyrule Castle. Which there's no Hyrule in this game, because it takes place in, what's it called? Holodrum, I think? Yeah. It also mentions Zelda, and she isn't actually in this game, except if you connect the two games.
It's alright, we get the cooler princess in the underworld.
Oh, true.
Yeah, we even get a dater.
The one you get to take on a date. Yeah, so you can get her key.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that. That was awesome.
She's the superior princess.
Yeah. She's got that bow. Damn, that bow, though.
Oh, I know. Nice bow. It's a shame you didn't prepare a picture of it. I mean, she's like the most important character in the entire series, and
I mean, the Subrosians, they're here, but
yeah,
I just grabbed the manuals. That's all I did. You're right. I should just put just a picture of her, just in my notes here. Anyways, yeah, I went through all these, and I'm like, oh, this is you kind of like say stuff about Hyrule and the Triforce and blah blah blah. So even though I think
no, never mind.
I was gonna say, even though I think like they are kind of maybe the weakest connected, there's still like the stuff there to kind of put them where they're supposed to be, and also the fact that the design matches. It's the same Link in all
Yeah,
4 of these, so it's there.
kind of unrelated, but I kind of dislike how they kind of shoehorn Ganon into all these games, where it's like you have a villain throughout the entire game, and then at the last second, nope, it was Ganon the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of these, I mean, you could blame the timeline probably, just because like Ganon doesn't actually appear unless you like get a game over in Link 2 or Zelda 2.
Hmm.
So like the wizard is the main guy. Link's Awakening only features like the nightmares, I guess, and it takes the form of Ganon in that game at the
Yeah.
end, but it's not actually Ganon. Link to the Past, yeah, it features Ganon.
Then
Uh,
like Twilight Princess, they do the same thing, where at the very end it's Ganon who's controlling the strings or whatever.
yeah, that's true. I guess they do have, that is one of the ones where they have kind of like a stand-in villain for a large portion of it, and they switch. I feel like that's really the only one they do that for, though. Maybe Skyward Sword has
Demise.
right, but it has the other guy with the swords.
Yeah.
What's his face? Who's kind of like the stand-in villain for most of it until you fight
Mhm.
Demise at the end. That's the only one I would say.
Maybe
I guess
maybe
kind of
that's
does
it.
that. But I mean, most of these do just use Ganondorf for sure. Like this one. I wouldn't say this one technically. This one for sure. Ocarina of Time. Well, Skyward Sword has Demise. It's the same guy. Wind Waker. These two, no. Link Between Worlds does, technically, but it's just like a resurrected, crazy version of Ganon that combines with what's his name, Yuga or whatever?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the only reason Ganon's in like the Oracle games is if you like beat both games and then connect them. And a lot
Yeah.
of people think that scenario is like not even canon anyways. But
Yeah, I didn't do that until like high school. I think
yeah.
I eventually just got like you can get the codes online and just enter them into your game.
Yeah, you have Vati. Vati is a great villain that they kind of actually established like a new villain that they actually reused,
Yeah, for some reason I
which is
thought
kind of cool.
Ganon was in those games as well, but I guess you're right. It was just Vadi.
Yeah, Ganon is in Four Swords Adventures, as we kind of talked about, as reincarnation of Ganondorf, but he ends up just resurrecting Vati. And so Vati is kind of still the ultimate villain of Four Swords Adventures, but yeah, that one's kind of a weird game where they have both. It's super interesting in terms of the lore, though. Four Swords Adventures.
Yeah, I can
And then
never played those games though, so I never had anyone to play them with.
Yeah. I mean, the original Four Swords you can't play without somebody else, but you can play Four Swords Adventures by yourself, technically.
Okay.
It does allow you to. You just control all of the links. But I have it. I mean, we could play it if
Do
you
it.
want. Yeah,
I'm always down for
I'm
that.
down. It's actually really good. I did play it with a friend back in the day, and it's actually a very fun multiplayer game. But yeah, they invent 2 original villains for Hourglass and Spirit Tracks: Demon King Malladus, and I think it's Bellum. His name's like Bellum in Phantom Hourglass. It's like a big ghost god thing. And then obviously Skull Kid, Majora's name. Anyways, I am kind of rambling at this point. Anything else?
I got nothing.
Any other? No, nothing else. All right. Well, this was fun. This was good. I was prepared to like just go through every game one by one and just be like, all right, this is how this connects.
Find
to that."
every piece of text that points
Yeah.
to a connection.
Yeah, I was prepared. That's why I screenshotted all the manuals. But Yeah, we didn't really go down that road. All right. Well, what did you think? What did you think of this conversation? Would you do it again?
I would.
Maybe not this specific
Nope, we're gonna have
conversation,
the
but
same exact conversation next time.
like a different conversation.
Yep, we're gonna create an alternate timeline.
Branching timeline.
Yeah.
We're like on different sides.